Hi, everyone. Welcome to Event Ready Podcast. We are going to spill the tea about the roller coaster ride of being a live event artist.
So if you're a painter, calligrapher, or illustrator, this podcast is for you because we're about to uncover the secrets, the stories, and the struggles of the industry. This is your host, Michelle.
And I'm Talisa, so get your tea ready.
Woo!
Hi, welcome back. This is our third episode. So today we're going to be talking about how do you know when you're ready. So,
So the big truth here, what is it, Talisa?
what is it, Michelle? Drop the truth. Drop the tea.
All right. The truth is you can't fake it until you make it.
That's the tea.
That's all the tea.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's the tea. And then we're going to talk about examples. Now, with the examples, we're going to bring up each skill set, which is calligraphy, engraving, bottle painting, and illustration.
Mhm.
We will be having episodes specifically on those each skill set. But today we're just gonna talk, I guess, very general idea of what will make one ready to perform it live.
Oh yeah, since we all do different activities, this is kind of like
Yes.
just a little taste of what we have
Yeah.
been seeing so far.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yeah, so Michelle and I are both calligraphers and painters.
Engravers.
So we do different things,
Mhm.
and also same things, but we both do calligraphy.
Mhm.
Specifically English calligraphy.
Yes.
Yeah, so I like that's the one that we are both skilled at.
Mhm.
So calligraphy and what makes one ready? So you're probably wondering, how do I know when I'm ready?
Right. So, what makes a person ready for calligraphy? So, let's say you have just learned how to do it. Now you want to know, am I ready to do this on site? We have a list of things that we have noticed and we have seen that we can kind of use that to guide ourselves. And like in the last episode, I was saying that there's no one there that's going to constantly tell you these are the things that you need to look out for. Like, no one is going to give you a review. That review is going to be done by yourself. We always have to take a look at our skills and how we're doing. So we have a list of things that maybe you can take a look at your skills and kind of rate yourself before you take a job on site. So for the first one, we have calligraphy, since Talisa and I both do that. The first one that I want to mention is knowing all the rules of calligraphy. So that would mean like your X height is consistent. Is your slant consistent? Because that changes with different types of calligraphy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so those are some of the things that you want to look out for. I know for myself, like if I ever feel like my calligraphy is maybe not spaced out correctly, or maybe my slant is sort of off, I will reprint all of the guide sheets and I will just start writing things. I will write words. I even love listening to music while I practice. I'll probably write out some lyrics just to have words to practice on. Yeah, that's kind of like what I do. What do you do, Talisa?
Yeah, honestly, even though we've been doing calligraphy for a long time.
Mhm.
I started learning it 2017 or 2018. I can remember. It was during my mat leave. If I look back, from like how my calligraphy was, I didn't actually learn properly until much later. So so I didn't really know the rules very well. And back then I didn't know the rules, so I couldn't really tell what makes a calligraphy look good. But now I've learned different scripts. I've learned copper plates, Spencerian, Madaras, and all that. Um, so now I know the rules. And one thing that I find is that whenever I perform live, because when I started, I used to do modern calligraphy, and then I switched to more traditional script.
Mhm.
And one thing that I notice is that because I now show on my website the different scripts that I can do, um, they tend to choose the one that's most legible. So legibility and calligraphy, like again, we mentioned again, it's so important.
Mhm.
Because it's still calligraphy is still kind of new to people, so they don't know what it's supposed to
Mhm.
look like correctly. But um I notice when I do in, like whenever I do whether calligraphy or engraving, they a lot of times people ask, can you do classic style? Like nothing too whimsical or anything. So I think that's again like that really depending your it depends on also the brand client that you work with. Because a lot of times I work with the high end, the luxury brands and whatnot. They usually want something that's classic. But I've also had clients who also want some modern. Again, I always show them the different type of script that they like.
Mhm.
So, but the main thing is that it has to be legible. So if you want to add flourishing, you want to make sure that you also follow the rules, because there are rules in flourishing, like, like um, the compound curves and everything. Like it has to make sense. Otherwise, it's not going to be legible anymore, right? So that takes a lot of obsessive practice. Definitely like it's like the muscle memory that you have to develop. Um, so yeah, I think, and again, also depending on like what we said again, the market where you are, look at the ones who have been doing calligraphy, look at their style. You should be strive to be like that or better. So
Mhm. Oh, totally agree. When you
yeah.
look back at your work when you started, how do
Mhm.
you feel about that? Like when you see work that you've done when you first started, is it
Mhm.
something that you're proud of or something that you know now that you need work on? Like, how does it make you feel?
Honestly, I remember, I think my first year of doing live events, I still have those up like on my Instagram story highlights.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't like it, obviously, because I'm like, wow, I like it was legible
Mhm.
because I think I studied calligraphy and obsessive practicing for 1.5 years before I was ready
Wow.
enough to perform.
Mhm.
But even that, like I felt like, no, looking back, there's just something wrong with it. I'm very picky about composition. It's like
Mhm.
there's just something wrong with it. And I couldn't figure out why. And then I
Mhm.
started taking the classic script, and I'm like, oh, I see why it didn't look right to
Mhm.
me. um you know because I understand that some people are just like, oh, is this your style? Like people like look at it that way, but it's like, but I want to make sure it's the style that most people can read and most people like.
Mhm.
And the comfortable one is usually the classic script.
Oh, yeah.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with modern. I think again, it depends on the clients, like it depends on the alignment and whatnot. So yeah.
Oh, I totally see that. And it's like if
Yeah.
the brand or if the client is requesting a certain script, obviously we're going to fulfill that need for them.
Mhm.
If they want classic, they're going to get classic. Just have to make sure it's
Yeah.
legible. It's super important to make it legible because
Mhm.
you don't want them to struggle when they read it. So,
Exactly. It's so yeah, legibility is super, super, super important, you
mhm.
know.
Oh yeah. Um, and then there's another one. So about brush pen versus pointed pen calligraphy.
Mhm.
Um, that again goes with the client needs, right? Like if they want something look like more modern,
Mm.
brush pen is really great for that.
Yeah, so I have had actually a luxury client have basically said something about that.
Ooh.
So they're so used to seeing calligraphers using pointed pen.
Mm.
They don't know what it's called, but they're like, they know what it looks like. You know, when you had that, when you did that Chinese calligraphy, like, oh, I see that tool, that you got the right tool.
Oh.
So they know what it looks like, but they don't know
Mhm.
what it's called.
Mhm.
And then they've seen someone who also like suddenly using brush pen, and then they're like, and they actually told me about it. It's like, it just, again, like, this is not for me to dish the brush pen or pointed pen. I'm just sharing what a client have told me specifically. They didn't like it that they were using that if someone was using a brush pen. It's just the pointed pen, it just gives the old money vibes, which very is aligned with their um their branding of that luxury client. But does that mean I don't bring brush pen at all? I still do,
Mhm.
only if it's like a secondary service. Like if
Mhm.
I'm doing bottle painting, and then like, oh, and then they ask like, can you write this name on this? I'm like, yeah, I didn't bring my pointed pen because I'm not gonna carry everything.
Mhm.
So then I would use a brush pen.
Yeah.
But I'm still like try to do like a classics script.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I think there is time and place where you use brush pen or pointed pen, and sometimes the client is knowledgeable enough to see the difference.
Mhm.
Sometimes they tell you, but if I am hired specifically for calligraphy, I will only be specifically using pointed pen. I'm
Right.
not gonna bring a brush pen. Like I'll bring
Right.
it for like a backup, but
Mhm.
it's not gonna be, because it just kind of shows to like, it just like,
It,
um
no, I love what you said about it. It's like the old money vibes. Like
yeah.
that's what all these luxury brands are. Like if you like take a look at some of their logos, they're written in copperplate or they're written in a classical script.
Even Joe Malone, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
They all have like classical scripts in them. Just take a look at it and really pay attention to their logo, and everything is very classical, old money. These brands have been around forever. So
mhm,
your style is like when you start matching their style, they really, really appreciate that. And also the pointed pen always brings that wow factor in there, like something that's so traditional where you like dip it right from there. Like not everyone can do that and they see that and they're it's very it's a really great conversation starter. You're there
mhm,
to also perform and people love seeing it. So
mhm,
I totally get it. But I do the brush pen, very convenient. I carry one with me in my bag. Um,
mhm.
it's for some like if you're hired for bottle painting and then they ask, "Oh, can you write on this card for me?" which has happened before. I obviously have my pen so I can write something really quick for them. It's good to have everything when you go on site, but sometimes like,
Mhm,
it's just an extra service for them.
mhm.
Yeah.
And I wanted to touch upon engraving because calligraphy
Mhm.
and engraving is kind of like, they're like sister niche.
Yeah.
A lot of calligraphers become an engraver, but sometimes some people like are doing bottle painting, picking up engraving because they ask you to do it. But I feel like when it comes to engraving, you need to know calligraphy first, 100%.
Mhm.
Because I've definitely, again, I've heard feedback from client who have seen someone who was not trained in calligraphy and then start doing engraving, and start to write names by trying to copy a script, like a script font, and they did not like that. So if you're still doing that, you're not ready. So learn calligraphy, which is the basic first, and then um start
Oh,
engraving.
for
Because if you're
sure.
doing, yeah, because if you're doing it, it's
Also
also slower too. Like, when you're doing it fast, you can just like,
mhm.
you know.
Also, it hurts your hand too. When I was still doing modern, I was like squeezing my engraving pen
Hmm.
and I realized it was like hurting my wrist. And
Oh.
then after that, when I learned a traditional script, you learn to hold it with a very light hand and, you kind
Hmm.
of let the brush, I mean, the pen do the work. And I was like, oh,
Hmm.
my wrist doesn't really hurt as much anymore. And so I
Yeah,
think
I think
Do you notice that? Like, is it?
I find that really interesting you said that, because that was what I noticed when I switched from modern um to classical
Mhm,
script. Like I think like your hand was so forced to like do it with the structure, and
mhm,
then like your muscle memory develop, and then you become light-handed
mhm, mm.
after after you train yourself to do it. And then that also means that your work becomes more sustainable for your health,
Ooh, for long,
right?
like you can engrave for like a 8-hour event
Yeah.
nonstop.
If yeah, engraving, if like I can engrave for 10 hours and I'm fine. If you cannot engrave for like, if you can only engrave for a little bit and your hands start hurting, you're not doing it right. It needs to
Oh my
be high,
gosh.
like, yeah, but
Yeah.
that's another story for
Yeah.
like the engraving
Okay. It is. It really is.
episode,
I'm
but
going off. I'm getting excited about engraving.
but let's start bottle
Okay.
painting now.
Okay. Bottle painting. Oh, okay. My favorite one.
This is your jam.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So how do you know when you're ready for bottle painting? So what I like to do for myself, or what I did for myself in the beginning and what I share with my students is when you start bottle painting and you want to be able to do it on site, the first thing that you want to be able to do is have at least 3 to 5 designs that you can showcase and confidently do and offer it to your clients. So let's say you have 5 different bottles with 5 different designs, and someone chooses the turtle. You want to be able to paint the turtle very confidently and quickly, and you know that you can paint it. Um, for these events, it's much easier and faster if you give them choices, because if you let them pick whatever they want, they may take a long time to think about something that they want. So number one, it takes too long for them to do it. Number two, the design that they choose in their mind may not be feasible. And then number three, maybe your skill set is not capable of doing that yet. So to avoid all of those things, have 3 to 5 designs that you can offer to them. I know, Talisa, you have done a ton of painting on site. Um,
So are you. You've done
yeah,
more than me. You're
I
like
think
the
we
queen of
both.
bottle painting.
I know. Oh my
Oh,
god.
and box painting too.
Oh, box painting.
Bottle, they're kind
Mhm,
of they're like different but the same. It's just different surface, but like we
mhm,
use the same tool.
mhm.
Um, I have a
You've done.
question.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about using paint pens?
Okay.
Your face changed.
I okay, paint pens, it's like the conversation we just had about brush pens and
Hmm.
pointed pen. So
Hmm.
they're two different things. They each have pros and cons to it, right?
Hmm.
But if you are hired for bottle painting, using a paint pen is not the same. A paint pen, so when you paint, it's about having two separate, a tool and a medium. So a paintbrush is used to spread the paint on the surface. You're using two independent tools and medium to create this artwork. But when you're using a paint pen, that's like just a thing, a single thing. It's like, I don't know, it's like a tube filled with paint, and then you're just drawing. It's basically illustration, but you weren't
Hmm.
hired for that. People can see a difference. They can see what you're using. If you're just drawing a flower versus painting it, it's a total different vibe. And brands can tell, your clients can see that. And it's not something that you want to offer, because if painting signifies paintbrush, right? So you want to make sure you're using that, you're offering what you got hired, you're offering the service that you got hired for. So
Hmm.
to me, it's not the same. And I have also seen that on site where I am painting and they hire another person to do like an illustration with pens. It's two separate things. So they're not the
And also like paint pens, like they come off easily. They scratch off
same.
easily. You can like the best paint pans out there is like what Posca or like even oil base. It just oil based pans are very expensive to begin with,
Mhm.
and then they dry it out after a one time use. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, there are also like scratches easily. I've actually had a client oh, not a client, a customer actually was like, oh, wait, you're not using paint pen. You're actually using a paint pen. Does that actually stay? Like, it's not going to scratch? Because the perfume that I bought before, like, it just scratched off. It just came off because the artist was using paint pen.
Ooh. Uh,
These are real conversations that I've had. So
that's the feedback that they told you.
yeah,
Oh
you
my.
get feedback like that. So don't make that mistake. Don't use paint pen. I mean, maybe you could do that,
Mm-hmm.
um, but I don't know. Again, you want to provide quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And speed.
And speed, right?
Yeah, quick
I think,
turnaround.
isn't it kind of scary that like the clients will tell you what other people did, but they won't tell you your own mistakes, so you may never know.
You may never know, but someone else will hear it.
Right. And then the word may or may not get back to you, so you won't be able to know of your mistakes
Hmm.
and you won't know if you need to change it or not.
Yeah.
So I would say do it right from the first try,
Hmm.
first time.
And then so then you can also charge accordingly.
That too.
So you
Oh.
feel justified. Like, I
Mhm.
know I have the skills, I
Mhm.
have the right tools, I have the
Mhm.
experience. I can perform this live and I can charge premium price,
Mhm.
you know.
Ooh, save that
Yeah.
thought.
I think
Um,
those are the mindset that you want to
yeah.
have when you're like
Mhm.
performing a life like this,
It all
right?
comes in together. Like everything that we do has a trickling effect and
Hmm.
it will affect things down the line. And
Hmm.
ultimately, it could affect your pricing or the way that
Hmm.
people see you and your business.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Does the style matters for painting, for bottle painting?
The style matter. Some
Mm.
brands may request different things, right? Like you had told me Joe Malone requested certain
The
styles.
British. Yeah.
British. Yeah.
So I usually do impressionist because I
Mhm.
find that it's like the fastest to do because I've heard so many times also from like a colleague who also do bottle painting, have been doing bottle painting in a like way longer than me. Like clients, they only care about quality and speed. You gotta be able to
Ooh.
paint fast.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress that enough.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing how to manage when you can paint fast or when you can take your time. I take my time when it's completely dead.
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Oh, okay.
What would you consider fast?
I would say like 10 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
5 to 10 minutes. I think that's okay. I think that's reasonable. Um, I can do like really quick, three
Mm-hmm.
minutes if I want to. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's also like engraving too. Like usually I communicate, um, um, ask the client depending on the
Mm-hmm.
type of event it is. Like how much time do you have?
Mm-hmm.
They're like usually like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I can do it really quick, and then you can come back in like 15 minutes. It'll be dry.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, that's a good, make sure you like ask them like how much time that they have. That's really good
yeah,
to know.
you want to have a clear communication and
Mm-hmm.
clear expectations. So
Mm-hmm. Right. And then one more thing about bottle painting is we were talking about the paint pens earlier. I just want to say, like, please make sure that you're using you're using a paint that is made for glass surfaces. So there are
mm,
multi-surface paints out there. I personally love folk art multi-surface acrylic paint. The other one that I really like is Deco Art multi-surface or Deco Art Americana multi-surface acrylic paint. So those are two that I always recommend using, especially when you're on site and for glass surfaces. So make sure you have the right paint.
yes, have the right paint so it doesn't peel off
I know,
easily and then
right?
dries fast. And
Mhm.
I like you did all the homework. That's why you have the bottle painting course. You did all the research, which and did all the testing, the experiments. So we don't have to. So thanks,
Oh,
Michelle.
oh my gosh. No, I love sharing that with people. I get so excited to talk about paints. Like if when we have our bottle painting podcast. I probably won't shut up about the paints, but
Oh God, we're gonna go on and on about
I know we're
it.
gonna have fun. But right now we're
Yeah.
just talking about how do you know when you're ready. So
Yeah.
let's move
Okay.
on to Talisa's skills.
Oh, my scroll.
Your skills. I don't do these, but Talisa is really amazing at this. And whenever I see her work, I'm like just always so blown away. Like it blows my mind because I know it can be difficult, but with practice, it can be used for on-site. So Talisa, I'm going to have you talk about illustration,
Oh.
portrait.
Okay. So the specific illustration that we are gonna talk about, the ones that I've only done, is portrait and
Mm,
fashion illustration. So I think so illustration and portrait have been my first love for a very long time. It's I've been obsessively loving doing it. But I did have to stop when I was learning calligraphy, and but I wanted to get back into it. So I went back to doing it again. And luckily, one of my loyal clients actually hired me to do portrait illustration. Um, and it was like a line portrait, just like the face. And it seems easy, but it's not. Because here's the thing, people are so sensitive and very conscious about how they look.
mm,
So you want to make sure that you can dignify and then capture all their unique features,
mm,
right? And you have to be able to do that fast. And like, you're obviously not going to paint or draw with details,
mm,
right? So you need to do that. Like, so you need to kind of reduce what details that I have to take away, but still people can tell that I am drawing them.
mm,
That takes a lot of practice, a lot of experiment, a
mm,
lot of like studies of like
mm,
portrait. Like a lot of courses out there about portrait, it's always slow drawing or slow painting.
mm,
And it's like you are supposed to start by learning how to draw. Whatever learning, you have to start slow first
mm,
before knowing how to take away which features or um which factors that you can like, that you can take off from like illustration. So like for me, when it comes to portrait, I had to time myself. And then I could do max 10 minutes or sometimes 7 minutes,
mm,
because I already know so well like how far apart the eye is supposed to be, and then like where to put your nose and all that. So I can do that really quick. But that took years and years and years of practice.
right.
Um, so I have my ugly my ugly practices. I mean, remember when we talk about how like uh, um worst your worst practice at home
Mm,
is your best at life. So
mm,
yeah. And another thing, we're gonna talk a little bit more about the illustration, like what it feels like. I'm gonna tell you that it is 100%, 100 times more difficult than doing calligraphy, than writing names, because there's a lot of variables.
mm,
You have to look at the people. Sometimes when I actually first did live portrait, it was during the COVID time.
mm,
So everybody still had to wear a mask, so they had to send me their picture. A lot of their pictures are terrible pictures, which is understandable because they're not photographers. Not
mm,
everybody had branding photo shoots. So
mm,
they all have like low lit pictures. So I had to kind of look at their facial space, like how their eyes look like, even though it was a really crappy, very zoom in
mm.
picture. You still have to know how to translate that into a paper in less than 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. You make it look so easy.
But it didn't come with like a lot of practice.
my gosh.
And then like knowing different,
Mhm.
angle of face. I
Mhm.
think portrait is the hardest out of all um out of all the activations I've ever done, like live performance.
Mhm.
The second hardest would be fashion illustration because now you get the whole body.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to body, is more like, you still have to dignify their body size. So it's
Oh,
important to
most
learn how
important.
to draw, yeah, how to draw body diversity,
Mhm.
skin color.
Mhm.
Um, so so the difference between portrait and fashion illustration is that a fashion illustration is just mostly focusing on the outfit, what they wear. So it's not really fine art. It's more like, making them look like a fashionista. So a lot of times you need to change their how they stand and make them look like they're posing. That's how I do it anyway. Sometimes people just draw whatever they see. But for me, if I'm being hired a fashion illustration, then I will make them look like they pose like a supermodel without changing their body types,
Mhm.
without changing their like skin color.
Mhm.
Right. But if I'm hired as a portrait illustration, I would want to know if it's like a face or is it for a full body. Now, if it's full body, then I'll probably like do it a way where it's more like fine arts, but I can still be able to do it fast. And for that, I've been able to do it in 7 minutes, so I know that I'm able to perform that. But it used to be like 12 minutes. With the more that you practice, it becomes less and less because your muscle memory just remember like where to add the lines for your legs and like where, how your arms are folded and whatnot.
Mhm.
So all of that takes a lot of practice. So cool. Oh,
Can
yes,
I
you
ask
have a
you a question?
yeah.
You make it so, oh my gosh, I just love your work so much. You make it
Oh,
look so
thank you.
easy. But like, well, like, if you had to make a guess, how many hours a week did you spend practicing these two things? Because, portraits are one thing, and then fashion illustration is another thing. What would you say, like, how many hours you put into practicing before you
Oh,
felt comfortable doing this in front of people for the first time?
oh my God. See, it's kind of hard to say because with portrait, I've been doing that my whole life,
Mhm.
but learning how to do it fast, it definitely took a long time. I think because I already have the skill set and knowing
Right.
how to cut it down to make it fast, it wasn't
Mhm.
that long, but the practice was a lot.
Mhm.
Um I remember I was just like, I'm gonna take a whole week just to like practice. But this is
Right.
again, I'm not a newbie. Like
Mhm.
I've done it's just more like getting my hand warmed up, getting my hand redeveloped that muscle memory that I once was lost. And then I took like about no wait, I think it was about like definitely a few months until I was comfortable enough
Mhm.
to go out there. But that few months is not like I just learned how to draw.
Right.
Like I already had like decades of experience.
Mhm.
So if you're someone new who've never drawn before, then you probably need to go with the basic how to draw like the simple stuff. Like maybe
Mhm.
draw fruits and whatnot. But like jumping into learning how to draw bodies, that might be like difficult. And I understand there's like the thing is that with illustration, life fashion illustration or portrait, it has been around way longer than calligraphy.
Mhm.
So the standard is much higher. Um, and that's why I feel like it's a lot more, the premium price is even higher than calligraphy. So brands will know.
Oh my gosh.
um
That makes it a little intimidating.
it seems intimidating, but it's definitely attainable again with like thousands of hours of practice, obsessive practice. Like even back now, like I don't have any live fashion illustration coming up events, but I still like doing it because it's just like it's just fun. Like, that's
Mhm.
why I always have my watercolor pen out. I always have my brush because I know that I want to like be able to like paint whenever I want.
Right. I know you like for like I started taking a portrait class, just
Uh-huh.
drawing with a pencil. And there's so much to learn. And with my medical background, like you understand where the muscles are in the face, you understand the skull bone structure. You have
That
to
is important.
understand that it's super important because you got to know what you're
Uh-huh.
drawing. Like you need to know where to place things because that all
Yeah.
falls like within the skull, right? You need to understand what's
Yeah.
underneath there. And I'm like,
Yeah.
this is thankfully I have like a medical background. I can like see that. But like if I'm starting from scratch, I'm like, this is too much. Like I don't even know the name of like certain facial structures. Like you need to know
Uh-huh.
all that, right? Like it
Yeah.
goes down deep. And I can see how it took you like years to learn that part before you can
Hmm.
like take away certain details to make the process faster. And I know it's not
Hmm.
impossible, right? Like it's something
It's
that is
not.
it's achievable, but with
Yeah.
enough practice
Yeah.
and not practice just because you have an event coming up. Like if
Yeah.
that happens, it's already too late. You need to
Yeah.
practice like for fun, practice on your downtime.
Hmm. So like once you practice, you just kind of have to time yourself.
Mhm.
If you can, if you can produce uh, a quality work within less than 10 minutes, whether it is portrait or fashion illustration, then you
Mhm.
are ready.
Mhm.
I'm still nervous about going to like this event where I'm required to do illustration. Um, because it's just a bit slower turnaround time than calligraphy that I'm mostly normally doing, right? So, but I think people understand it's usually first come, first serve base.
Mhm.
Because there's no way that you can draw 100 people within an hour. It's impossible. Like, can you even photograph 100 people an hour? No, you can't, right? Imagine like illustrating.
Mhm.
So yeah, and obviously you should know the tools that work for you. It
Mm.
might be different for different artists. You
Mhm.
know, some people like using markers.
Mhm.
I personally like only using watercolor. But if you're still asking someone, hey, what tool are you using? I have an illustration coming up in a month. If you're still asking what tools another artist is using, that means you're not ready. You should know how to produce. So,
Yeah.
so
Oh, yeah. That's a little too late. You don't want to end up
I
like,
would rather if I don't like it's better off that you just refer that to someone else.
mhm, totally. And
Hmm.
then it all comes back down to the brand will tell. The brand can
Hmm.
tell. Maybe
Yeah, like these because like a lot of our clients are in the fashion industry.
of
So
seriously, that's what we're doing. All of these brands, that's
yeah, they're not in calligraphy industry. They're in the fashion industry. They're in beauty industry. So they've seen like what it's supposed to look like.
right.
Um, you know,
The standards
and
are high.
way higher. That's why it's a lot
Mhm.
more premium,
Mhm.
high ticket price compared to like just doing calligraphy or engraving.
Right.
Um,
It's the highest,
yeah.
as it should be. Like, look at all
As
the
it
work
should
that
be.
you put all
Yeah,
the
it
work into
should be.
it.
It's not easy to draw a face. It's not easy to draw like
Mhm.
illustrate. But we obviously again we're gonna have a detailed,
Mhm.
you know,
Chat.
episode and chat about all the stuff that we mentioned.
Yeah, we have a lot
So
to say.
mhm.
All right. So
So
we went through all of the skills and now all of the examples, actually. And now we
mhm.
want to give you some actionable advice on
Mhm.
how you know how you can prepare.
Yeah.
The first one from here. I see Talisa doing this so much, and it's pretty much having intentional practice.
Mhm.
Practice whenever you can. Practice because not because you have an event coming up, but practice
Mhm.
because you want to. Practice before you go to bed or when you have some downtime if you're commuting to work. Just something so that your hand can start developing that muscle memory. And
Yeah.
muscle memory comes with calligraphy. It also comes with drawing, painting,
Mhm.
also. So you can start building up your muscle memory that way.
And those muscle memories are different.
Mm.
It's not the same. Just because you've done calligraphy doesn't mean you can pick up illustration like in 2 months.
It doesn't
The same
translate.
thing, like if you've been doing illustration for a long time, doesn't mean that you can pick up calligraphy in 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't just like what Michelle, I love what you said. Like, don't practice just because you have an event coming up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Practice even if you don't have any. Like, you're supposed to love it because you're gonna hate it if you don't like, if you can't produce it. Um,
Right.
yeah, and intentional practice also means like, knowing which area to improve. Always looking at your work and see like, oh, I think I can do it better. Maybe the tools need to be changed. Maybe the way that I don't know. There's so many things about that, right? So when you're looking at the work, like you look at you study it.
Mhm.
Like you don't just copy whatever you did. You don't just do random drills without knowing like how to do calligraphy better and whatnot. So like, like just looking at like when I'm doing calligraphy when I used to do calligraphy drills, I would stop at like 5 strokes, like or like, 5 letters and look back and see like this one looks right and that one doesn't look right.
Mhm.
What did I do wrong? And
Mhm.
so you need to be able to label what you did wrong. And so then, because once you've labeled that, then you know how to fix it, and you
Mhm.
can go back to your course content, like what did the teacher say about that letter?
Mhm.
And this is why I always go for like lifetime access courses, because I can always go back to it. Um, so yeah, I think again, like the actionable advice is just practicing and is taking courses and actually intentional practicing,
Mhm.
and intelligent practicing,
Intelligent
intellectual
practice.
practicing. Yeah, not just like
Right.
randomly doing
I know.
drills. Yeah,
And then
like
another
blindly.
thing is like if you haven't done it for more than 10 years, like you need to start building that muscle memory up again because
Mm-hmm.
you will forget over time. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't pick it up again. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of time that has gone by and you need to re-exercise that.
Yeah, it does. I think just like what I said before, I used to do a lot of portrait illustration and I had to stop because I was doing calligraphy. Um, and then it was like a 4 years break. So it took me months to get back to it again until my hand remember it again.
Mhm.
So redeveloping that muscle memory, it took a while. So it's definitely not an overnight thing just because you've done it a while
Mhm.
ago. And if you've done it like when you were a teenager and you've never done at all in between,
Mhm.
then you are actually a new beginner again.
Oh,
You're not you forgot everything.
yeah, you forgot it. You got to go re-remember it.
You have to like learn from the basic again and then take time to practice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Keep practicing. And
Yeah.
I like that. I force myself to practice sometimes. Like when
Have
I'm
to.
writing grocery notes, I
Hmm.
force myself to write it in a classical script. Um,
Hmm.
or even if I'm just making little post-its for myself, I stick post-its all around my computer.
Yeah.
Take the dog out at this time. Like
Yeah.
it's another way to practice.
Yeah.
And also give gifts. Like if you're gonna give like a card, write it in your calligraphy. Make it look
Hmm.
pretty. There's so many things that you can do to practice.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that advice. Like, just get yourself doing it, even whatever you can. I mean, you can always start with even a pencil,
Mhm.
right? And like just start to personalize and write everything
Oh,
on
yeah,
pretty much
right?
anything, draw anything on pretty
Right?
much everything. And you're supposed to love it. You're
I know.
supposed to enjoy it. If you hate practicing it, this is probably not for you.
Oh, no. No.
Yeah, because this thing takes time to develop a
Yeah.
muscle memory.
And you
So
can't compete with someone who
who loves it?
actually loves. Mm,
Yeah. And
yeah.
you know what? Um, I actually have a struggle. My struggle is because I do calligraphy and then painting and then engraving. Well, engraving and calligraphy are kind of the same. Uh like, like these different types of art.
Mhm.
My struggle is like I have to keep doing this. Like I like 1 week I'll be doing like calligraphy. The next week I'll be like practicing illustration, whether it's portrait or fashion. So like I have to keep doing it so
Mhm.
then I don't forget to do it.
Mhm.
And it's only like 1 week difference. Because my absolute fear is like if I'm doing too much calligraphy and then I'm forgetting how to draw,
Mhm.
which happened before. And I'm like, I don't want to get back to that again.
Yeah. So
you
you're
know?
saying that
So
it's okay to do multiple things all at once, just switch
yeah,
back and forth. There's no
you just
real
have to
order of
yeah,
doing.
you just have to remember to switch back and forth and not
Yeah.
forgetting. And don't just like again, like don't just practice because like, oh, you have an event coming up suddenly.
Too late.
Like, oh
Yeah.
my God. And then you're like panic buying like different tools.
Yeah.
Like
No.
that doesn't help.
No,
The
it doesn't. It's just
tools
gonna make
doesn't make the skill.
you're already nervous about being on site and then you have to worry
Yeah.
about your skills. Like
Mhm.
that's too much to think about.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't wait for a commission or live event to start
Mhm.
practicing. Just do it, even if you're not doing anything. And this is why you want to take time to set aside. I usually have a schedule. Like Monday, I don't like doing like work stuff.
Mhm.
Mondays are like my chill days. Those are actually the days that I'm like, I just want to paint. I
Yeah.
just want to like
Chill
draw. I
day.
just want to like doing
Yeah.
calligraphy. Um, so
I have a question.
mhm,
So for portraits and
mhm,
fashion illustration,
mhm,
what kind of advice can you give on that for someone who is just starting out?
mhm. I think if you just starting out for portrait, like learn how to do front view first,
Mhm.
master that, and then
Mhm.
learn different angle.
Mhm.
And with with fashion illustration, learn how to do one pose first. Just master that first.
Mhm.
Then try different poses.
Mhm.
Because the way the body like moves to make it like in a 3D form, it's different. So it's kind of like you really need to study body anatomy at one. But I actually took a class, like a fashion illustration class, and then they actually break it down with like this muscle, like
Mhm.
like they label it, and it's like it's literally like learning body anatomy. And then when you the way you make it fashion, because you know how the actual it looks like, right? So it makes sense like when you're making it stylish.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's like it's definitely like a journey where it's hard, like anything that you want to. I mean, people are paying so much money for it, that's why it's so hard, but that's why you practice it. So yeah, so learn one pose first and then learn different poses,
Mhm.
and just um and then after that it gets easier.
Yeah, learn the
Yeah,
basics first and then you can
learn
start
the basic first. Yeah. And then
exploring.
you have to learn how to color it. Like, do you want
Yeah.
to do black and white, or is it like, grayscale, um, um, or like, is it color? Like it's so important to learn how to do different skin tone.
Mhm.
Because you don't want to like offend anybody.
Ooh.
Right.
Mhm.
You have to be able to dignify their features,
Mhm.
because you don't want to make everybody look skinny.
Mhm.
Right? You don't want to make everybody look like white. Um, so there are ways of like how to do that before you actually go live.
I love that you do that. It also keeps it really fun. Like you're not always drawing the same thing because everybody's different, and I love
Yeah,
that.
everybody's bodies and faces are
Mhm.
beautiful. You just need to know how to like capture it well on
Right?
a piece of paper. Yeah.
And all the colors. Oh,
Yeah. Mhm.
right. So we
Yeah.
have that practice, learn the basics.
Hmm.
And then as far as bottle painting, You want to make sure you practice it at home. Make sure that whatever design you're doing can be done within a certain amount of time, either 10 to 15 minutes. If you need to remove some details to make it a little faster, you can. So, like if you're painting a flower and you have 5 leaves around it, maybe you want to decrease it to about 3 leaves and maybe only do one flower if that's what you can manage at this time. Timing yourself is super important. Make sure you can do it in about 10 to 15 minutes. And you also want to look at the quality. Don't make sure quality is still there. That's really important. And like Talisa said, clients only care about the two things, which is speed and time. Speed and quality.
Quality.
Speed and quality. So make sure you still have that when you're doing your practicing. And I think we covered everything. Is there anything else that we missed?
So I think the takeaway is the reason why it's important to know if you're ready or not.
Mhm.
Because it has a lot to do with money mindset, like pricing mindset, right? You want to make sure that you can charge premium so you don't undercut the industry and you don't, undercut your colleagues and whatnot. Um, if you feel like I've studied this enough, I know how to do this quick. I know, like, I've done thousands of hours, I've put thousands of hours into it, to practicing, and I know that I can do this in front of people and whatnot. You feel justified charging that
Mhm.
price,
Mhm.
premium price.
Yeah.
But you feel like you're not ready. You feel like your lack of confidence is gonna justify you charging lower than the industry standard.
Oh.
So we don't want to get there, right?
Mm-mm.
Now speaking of charging lower or high,
Yep.
we are going to talk about pricing in the next episode, and we have a
Yep.
special guest.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ooh. So
So
get ready. It's gonna be a
get
good one.
ready. It's gonna be some tea being spilled
Oh, a
by
lot.
this, yeah, our beloved friend of ours.
Yes.
um
Fun, lots of tea.
yes. So we're gonna wrap up this episode. Thank you again for listening. Please give us feedback, whatever that you want us to cover, what topics, um, or send some comments. Greatly appreciate it, if you do. So stay tuned for the next episode.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.